regulate what goes into our food, our clothing, even our pet food. Yet AI can create the news we read, the ads we see, even influencer posts that guide our buying decisions, all of this without telling us these things were generated by AI. So today we're fortunate to have two experts, Henry Kaiser and David Berkowitz, and they're going to help us explore this extremely important, rapidly growing issue. So welcome to Retail OCD. We are three seasoned experts who spent our careers inside of retail, and we're still obsessed with it. I'm Deanne Campbell, and I'm here with co-hosts Josh Rockoff and Barney Stacher. So Josh, why don't you introduce David? Because I know you spent a little bit of time with him this week at a speaking engagement.
So, Dan, David and I actually serve in a community called Progress Partners. It's a venture capital firm as well as a investment bank that obviously helps both ad tech and media tech, as well as in the commerce space. And both David and I are entrepreneurs in residence or executives in residence as part of the group. David and I actually had a great chance to talk yesterday, actually at Stripe's offices, really about the idea of agentic commerce. And we're both passionate members of the sort of commerce marketing crowd. So very much wanted to introduce David. David has a illustrious history. I'm quite excited about going from yesterday, we were together also back to the podcast. But David actually runs, he's part of Marketecture. He's actually runs the AI Marketers Guild. He's a thought leader in this space. And the reality is, I think it's probably worth David giving a short brief on his background because I can't do it justice.
Thanks, Josh. It's fun hearing some of your retail and commerce stories last night. And with me, a longtime agency guy, worked at agencies under Dentsu and Publicis, went over the tech side. Past decade, I've been doing a lot of community building. I sold serial marketers and AI Marketers Guild to Marketecture. I've got a consultancy, High Caliber AI. I'm doing a lot of work with Intuit, Mailchimp these days. And I just love getting to explore where all of AI implications and applications are heading and how we're putting them to use in marketing and media.
That's great. Yeah, thank you for that. And Henry, we met a while ago as you were advising another company, and now you're involved in individual Centricity as a senior advisor there. I personally have some interest and experience in the privacy issue, having worked in conversational AI and face recognition. And so I understand some of it from the retail consumer side of it, not necessarily the technological side or fully the legal side. And what's happening exactly now. But I recall the days of, and I'm sure we all do, when you had to prove you were doing something or who you were as work went remote early on and people had a device that would move their mouse. And so individual centricity made me think of that because of the variety of ways that we have to prove who we are, yet retain our privacy at the same time. And so Henry, tell me a little bit about yourself and the journey with individual centricity.
I've been involved in innovation of one kind or another my entire career at the Kaiser companies, and then starting companies with venture capital firms, and now as an advisor to such things as Individual Centricity Corporation. What interested me about that is, first of all, I knew all the people in the company, and some of them had been with me in things I started. So when they started talking about the breakthrough in the architecture and the One True You app, I think this is beginning to look like the best deal I've ever seen. And I'm happy to talk about it because it is an innovative concept, and it takes a while to explain it to people so they really understand what it does.
Sure. Yeah, it's technologically new. It's bridging a few things, and it requires some explanation. None of us here on the other side are scientists, but we do play one on podcasts. So where do we start with this, Deanne? Where should we dive into these issues? Should it be on the consent side of things?
I think that's a good place to start because really, when you think about transparency and privacy with AI, I think the biggest conversation that's starting is when AI is used to write product copy to generate model imagery to personalize email campaigns. Whether consumers should be told or not told, and what's the risk to consumers if they're not told, who gets the liability if a consumer ends up with something they didn't expect. Is there a liability? And is there a responsibility on the consumer side to do a little more due diligence? Or is there a responsibility on the retailer side to let the retailer know what they're seeing is AI? And are there any disclosures that are starting to voluntarily happen? This is really new ground, and it's been a long time since we've had new ground at this level or scale of importance, I think. So I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that.
It's not just GDPR anymore. I mean, it's the other side of it as well. Henry, you're talking about technology that proves who you are.
Yes, I would start by saying the technology available today that proves who you are and who you're talking to is actually who you think they are isn't working. Look at the recent Canvas hack. 8,000 university, 250 individual records stolen. That hack was probably crawling around inside Canvas for over 200 days undetected. And our technology would have identified and blocked that hack in milliseconds.
So let me just ask a question there. So this to bridge the back to consent. So Canvas offered consent to somebody who shouldn't have had consent because they were able to prove who they were not.
Exactly. The large language models of how the internet work will never be able to fix that problem. It doesn't matter what the application is. You need an individually centric approach, which is a small language model, which means you're only using a very, very small data set to say with 98% certainty that you are really you, and who's calling you is really who you think they are. And if that ever is not the case, you're going to be aware of it in milliseconds.
It's interesting. So it's device-based because it's a smaller language model?
It means that it doesn't take a lot of power because it isn't researching all kinds of data through public databases, which are hackable in the first place. Information that they don't need. In our case, 8 to 10 sensors of individual behavior patterns, how you hold the phone, how you key strike. That's not your personal data. We don't store any data. We don't send any data anywhere. All we know is the behavior patterns that are absolutely, positively, uniquely you. Nobody can do what you do. When you do that, you're still anonymous. Right. But you're safe. This is not 1984. No.
I just quoted that book the other day.
Yeah. We make anonymity safe.
Well, let me ask you a question about that because, we all have phones now that unlock by way of our face and eye, right? And verify who we are. But this takes it seems 8 steps further, or it's a combination of things that, again, is unrepeatable, like the algorithm that's created from an eye or a face. Is that the case?
Well, that data, an eye or a face, is hackable. A fingerprint is hackable. But how you do certain things, how you walk, nobody on this planet does it like you do it.
That's so interesting. Yeah, it's a
biometric. I don't think people understand the scale of the issue too. I mean, you just look at credit cards. So average credit card transactions per day, just in the US alone, 154 million transactions per day. Of those, normal 2% identity failure rate, verification failure rate, where the people they caught was about 2%, which sounds small, but when you think about 154 million transactions a day, now when you look at the synthetic identities that they're estimating that are not, they estimate they don't catch 95% of those synthetic identities. That's 95% of synthetic identities are getting through, are not being stopped. And that number they estimate, because this is after the fact, they're finding about these after the fact, not before, is it went up 300% last year. So Lord knows what's going to happen this year as AI gets better. And so the scale of this problem is in the billions and approaching, it's getting significant. And last year I saw that merchants, just retail, it cost $118 billion, the synthetic identity problem.
As AI deploys further and further and further into everything we do, AI is making the problem worse.
Why is AI making the problem worse?
Because it makes mistakes. It guesses,
but
it guesses, it doesn't learn. You can argue AI, we've done it actually, to say, is kibble dog food good for dogs? Okay, and we'll go through the analysis and we'll wind up with the end of that discussion is, yes, I made a mistake and I misled you and I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like, I mean, it's funny because one of my favorite things when I got my Google Home and, these voice assistants is so like I'll be cooking in the kitchen and I'll be like, so, hey, Google, tell me why bacon's bad for me, right? And then I'll be like, hey, Google, tell me why bacon's good for me, okay? And it's like, it's great on paleo diets and this and that, and come up with all of these reasons why I should be eating bacon. And so it's like I can justify literally anything.
And, well, in fact, that's the reason why I'm on statins, because my doctor said you can eat bacon if you go on statins. I said, I'm in.
Yeah.
So bacon's the cure for AI, I think.
It's candy, it's not meat, but we digress. Henry, sorry about that, but we digress into the meats, as it were. So, but let's talk about this, because that's a real world example. Canva's a real world example. Let's talk about it, because we're in the retail OCD business, and we believe retail is hospitality. Hospitality is retail. Retail is everything. Each of you, David first, give us a real world example beyond your Google moment. Pick a consumer to business or a business to business transaction, and let's give us a real world example of where the transaction privacy and authenticity is broken down.
Ultimately, I mean, I'd say a lot of things are broken because the infrastructure is not there yet. And it's crazy how many things break in something as tested as the credit card payment side of things. And you're talking about trillions of dollars at stake here. But when it comes to where things are going, and especially if we look at this topic that Josh and I were just talking about last night, this agentic economy, then where we're ultimately heading is instead of B2B and B2C, it's like B to A to A to B, or B to A to A to C, and there could be lots of complicated steps in the middle, and that each party has their own agent. And so now if I'm looking for deals for something and there's someone that knows, well, they've got a product I want, I'm a new customer, they've never seen me before, they want to offer my agent a special 20% deal for my first few purchases and get in where my agent is like, I'm not spending more than $100 on this pair of sneakers if I find them, but now it's able to negotiate, right? Like all of this is getting built, I'd say gradually, but it's actually happening pretty quickly, just the way that so many of the major players from Google to Visa to PayPal and everyone else, like everyone's building toward steps to making this work. Now, and there are things you can do now, like when ChatGPT first came out with their agentic mode, I tried using its agent to go on Uber Eats and order dinner for my daughter and me. And when I first did this, it took so much longer to order the food than it would have if we went out to that restaurant.
If it's not easier and faster, why are we doing it?
But not yet, right? Like that yet word is really, really important here, because it's fun to actually see this stuff break and to be the ones who are breaking it, because we're in this very small subset of people who will actually want to do this before we know it's ready. There are very few things that feel agentic as far as the promise goes that I could go and recommend to a friend of mine or a family member and say, like, do this and you'll see the future of agents in action. Like there are a few things more on like the B2B tech side. There's some fascinating apps out there. And yes, like there are all these things that are using agents a little bit more quietly, but there's none of this like, here's my like virtual version of me, go have it do, fetch my dinner, do my taxes, do all
There's
things.
not the old school, have your assistant call my assistant and find us
right, and my digital twins and all of that. But all the underpinnings of that are there right now. So this is why I'd say it's less about things breaking and more that like we're just getting warmed up. And what's exciting though is that there are a lot of us who can see where it's like, why wouldn't we have this agentic layer in the middle for a ton of transactions? Maybe not every last thing like a quick thing at the 7-Eleven, like, do I really need my agent getting in the way of that? But for most things, it's like, why the heck not, right? We're just not quite there yet.
Here's the big question, right? Henry, you were like, you know what? The agents are wrong. But they're very passionate about being wrong. We know people have been doing this for years, right? It's people, right? It's been centuries. It's been hundreds of years. Go back to Pompeii, right? You walk around, you see all these advertisements on the walls. You look at it, you're like, yeah, that's not true. Like it's, and there's plenty of text. Read Plato, right? Like, some of the things that are out there. They're obviously taking whatever information is out there and summarizing it. Yeah, they're passionate about it. You're talking they, it's really it. But it's passionate about it. I guess the bigger question is, how are they different than humans, right? It seems like humans have always been, like they kind of push their own thing. I mean, I look at Daily Candy. I always cite them as a perfect example because Daily Candy, they essentially invented the idea of what is an advertorial. You thought it was an editorial, thought it was like, oh, these are the top 5 best reviewed hair dryers, similar to Consumer Reports, but actually it was Dyson and others paying for that placement. It's hence the word advertorial. And there was congressional legislation that was passed as, yeah, you got to disclose that because you're essentially being duplicitous. We've all seen this happen over culture, and obviously there's been legislation to try to, limit it. What makes the agents any different?
It depends how the agent works. So our individually centric fractal architecture works by active inference. Active inference is the way the brain thinks. That means when a human addresses a problem or is searching for certainty, it has the ability to learn by backing up or saying, oops, that's wrong. I think I better start over. Large language machine modeling cannot do that. It makes guesses through predictive analytics. And it doesn't matter what app you put on top of large language infrastructure. It's vulnerable. It won't work. When you reduce the data set so that you're only capturing the absolutely unhackable you, then when you are learning by reaching out to whatever resource it is, you're going to buy a gift card. You wonder if you should take GLP-1, all of that kind of thing. You're only going to know exactly that the person you are trying to reach out to knows it's you and you know it's really them. And by that means, you have an opportunity to go through an iterative process by active inference that isn't going to send you down a blind hole. And when it gets to the end of the blind hole, the algorithms say you have to give an answer. To get AI to say, gee, I don't know, is hard.
Yeah.
It's there to deliver an answer.
I have done it. Right. I have done it. I was very proud.
Yeah, but iterative is the word.
Josh, does that answer your question?
It does. I mean, the reality is is it really just because the LLMs don't really have the necessary backup data?
The large language models have too much data.
I was going to say
much of which is hackable. And it's also taking too much power. Massive server farms.
Massive.
With our thing, you don't need a server farm. The thing runs on your phone.
Exactly.
In the background. You don't have to manage it at all.
Yeah, and you can't get into it and hack it like a Wikipedia. And as you said, anybody's got an influence over it. And it's I personally, I think LLMs and what's happening is we are reaching the law of averages. The information that goes in and therefore the information that comes out, and what your solution does. Can you explain a little bit about the biometric part of it? Because to me, that's really interesting, because that, as you said, it's on your phone. It's part of that, I'll call it algorithm, but the complex process of proprioception that knows where it is in space in relation to you and how you operate. Is that part of it?
Yes. And a deep dive on that is going to go deeper than I can take you.
Yes, that may be for the real scientists.
That'll be a separate podcast.
Yeah, and we can do that. And but it gets so technical. Tom Locher, he has become a guru at this. Lots of papers, lots of publications, lots of PhDs saying, by golly, you're onto something here. We think you're right. It's there's been a growth of this. So we've become a thought leader in this whole technical space. And when you get into the coding of it and how it works, it's actually simple to do.
Interesting.
It's just hard to explain. It only takes about 4,000 lines of code for Hilton to install this, or for Macy's or whatever. You pick any store you want. Safeway.
Well, and I was going to take it back to the retail experience and Deanne to this in terms of the environment. We're seeing things like self-checkout on the phone, RFID, and so how does that because there are some technological obstacles to that in terms of security out, and really, again, do you have to have another layer of verification before somebody goes out? And then that's a privacy issue as well. But are you able to, so anyway, it's just interesting, as you said, how the technology is evolving so quickly. And David, maybe you can speak to that.
Not necessarily the underpinnings of all the technology, but
the experience of it.
Yeah, and it's going back to Newton's laws with the equal and opposite reaction, right? Like we're seeing multiple things being true at once, right? And one of the harder things to grasp is how some of these models are getting smarter and seemingly dumber at the same time, or the unpredictability, right? Like we don't know when something's going to be way smarter, and also what kinds of data wind up being really useful. For me, one of the most helpful kinds of data that has been a game changer in a lot of my AI usage is when you plug your LLM of choice into your own email history and your Drive, like Google Drive, right? Like, so when you do that in Gemini, Claude, or various LLMs through different connectors, now it's got maybe decades of context around you, right? And it might surface things that you said or wrote ages ago, which maybe you don't want to remember, but there's often all kinds of surprising things like that, where it's bringing in things that are outside of that specific conversation that are actually relevant to you.
Well, to that point, I think these guys have heard it before. Somebody told me this wasn't my idea. I asked ChatGPT, if I were a pie, what kind of pie would I be? And that was, like that. So it was based upon a lot of input. Now, of course, back to iterative, it gave me 3 pie choices, and I didn't like its first choice. I liked its second choice. So it now knows better that I'm more key lime pie than I am maple bourbon pecan. So,
but it could have also said you're a Greek letter.
And this is also where some of it is like, if you look at just like how we get to that accuracy piece, some of it, as we look at smaller models, there's this concept RAG, retrieval augmented generation. And so that's where you're dealing with a finite data set. Yeah. And this is also which I think has really big implications back on the commerce front and the shopping front right now. Humans, right? Like, how rules-based are we? How predictable are we? Versus how surprising and complex, and the trillions of connections in our neurons and things that that my 12-year-old went a number of times to say, or I don't think that sentence has ever been said by any human ever. Yeah. But if it has some finite set, like here's our email, here's our purchase history, you know, it's got so most of my receipts are in email now. So somewhere, all of this, it's got this data. It could be pretty good at making some assumptions. Sometimes though, I might not want to make any assumptions at all, right? Like, you know, I don't even want any of this like AI enhanced stuff. I just want a really, really simple rule. If you see now I've got my daughter shopping interest. If I see a 24 pack of Reese's peanut butter cups for under $8, like just go and get this, because she'll go through these things in a day. So like, I don't want you to get so creative on here. She doesn't want the Justin's ones. Heaven forbid she has something that might be slightly healthier or better in some way. No, just don't get creative at all. Follow this very, very strict rule. And if it's for 801, like don't average this out. Just give me it for under $8, right? But then we're hunters too, right? Like there's a lot of us, like we like
discovery. We want to discover.
Like, even when we're eating daily candy, right? It's like we think we're smart enough to subscribe to daily candy, so we know where to find the things that maybe 100 million other people just saw already, but like we're that insider, you know. And so it's like the stuff my daughter discovers on TikTok or Instagram. It's like, yeah, like 1 billion people just saw this thing, but she feels cool as hell. And
yeah. Well, we also tend to default to convenience as well, and we are overly trusting in many ways. We think we're not trusting, but in truth we are. And we see something online that we want, and we tend to trust our eyes, trust what we see, trust what we read online. And so who's responsible if we see a product, it's generated by AI, and it's not quite accurate, and it's something that we can't return? It's something like, I don't know, a mattress. Now, I know mattresses often have a good return policy, but what if you buy a mattress based on everything you see and read that is AI generated, and it's not accurate? You get it home, and maybe it causes a disc slippage, an injury of some kind because it was wrong. Is there some kind of liability there because AI got it wrong? And right now, we don't have anything addressing that. And there's really no legislation. It's a gray area. Nothing has come.
And in a way, it should be a gray area, right? Because like we know, for instance, when we see a McDonald's ad for their burgers, right? Their burger never looks like, their burger is about 3 millimeters thick, right? Like, like we know the sesame seeds don't look like that. You know, like we know all of that, and basically no one beyond the odd screwball is going out and trying to sue McDonald's for lying to us, right?
Counting the sesame seeds.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm picking on McDonald's, but like it's just like any of that kind of like Photoshop effect. We expect it for most businesses in the models that they're shooting, right? Like the all of these kinds of things. So there's some degree of lying, essentially, that we've said is like some except like that this shirt is never going to look as good on me as it did on whatever. I mean,
that's more marketing than lying.
It's like, is the AI generated version of that burger really any different than the Photoshopped version? Right. And like version of that burger versus making a claim that this burger or this clothing is so ethically sourced from these specific sheep in New Zealand, and there's some like just like wool farm somewhere. It's just amassing the stuff with the worst possible practices. Like so then you get into some things of this disintegrates on one wash. I'm probably going to want to go and raise hell somewhere, and who do I do that to? And does like the company not even realize that some reseller had some AI generated claim saying I'll have the shirt for life. And
Right.
Well, let's try an example.
Mhm.
I am not sure whether the people advertising GLP-1s are using AI or not, but I do know that what I see on the ads commits the sin of omission, and they are relying on caveat emptor, but let the buyer beware.
Mhm.
My God, I was going in my head for the last 5 minutes. Caveat.
Yeah. And
It's pretty funny,
so,
by the way.
all of the side effects, they're not lying, they're just leaving it out.
Well, but that's still my question, right? Like, you believe what you want to believe, right? But you do know what you're getting yourself into.
Mhm.
Isn't that just basically, are we making this assumption? Are we holding AI to a higher standard? Aren't we putting it at too high of a plane that we don't even hold our own people at?
Yeah, and I think that's the problem is that the technology is such that we're expecting it to be so good and so accurate, and we're offloading our decision making that we wouldn't offload to another human being necessarily.
Well, yeah, and so this is where disclosure is really important. This is where giving and giving people that degree of choice and agency in the matter is really helpful. So there's this book, Super Agency, that Reid Hoffman co-wrote, and a lot of it's cheerleading for AI, and some of it left a bit of a bad taste in my mouth. One area that I found fascinating, very relevant to this discussion, is AI being used to support mental health, right? Like, pretty obvious that most people lack resources to get proper mental health care, right? Pretty clear that just about anyone on the planet can benefit from some degree in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. And so the idea of using AI, and I've used certain tools like there's an app called Rosebud that kind of like goes from journaling to more of this like conversational flow of things that has actually helped lead me to some insights I didn't get from talking to professionals. Not to knock professionals at it, but it's led to some additive things that I hadn't seen before. Now with Rosebud, at least I know there's no trained professional here. I can even say to Rosebud, there's a therapist who wrote a book, Lori Gottlieb. Maybe you should talk to them. A wonderful book. I could say, like, use modalities that Lori Gottlieb writes about. I know I'm not talking to Dr. Gottlieb here. And so that should be perfectly clear. Now, can it be helpful to someone like me going into this conversation? I think so. That expanded access with a bit of that caveat emptor involved, like, that's really important. Not that there's some bait and switch that I'm going on like BetterHelp, and then I don't realize that some of these folks are actually bots and not people, especially when I'm doing the chat and not the live session. Like that could be really dangerous.
Would Dr. Gottlieb have to disclose whether or not his book was written by AI?
Good point.
That would be interesting.
But so here's the big question. Like, you heard about this, right? What about the lawyers who are arguing in court? I think in front of the Supreme Court or whatever, who they were admonished by the judge, right? And they did. I don't even know if they admitted it or not. I guess they finally figured it out. But basically, look, we all use Cliff Notes, right? I did when I was a little kid. The question ultimately, though, is like, there's a law that was passed in New York State who says that if it's an AI-generated image, I believe it's with people, but I think it's just in general, it needs to be said. You have to say AI-generated.
In New York, in New York State, yes.
There is a law that it was passed about this. Mm-hmm. And David, my bigger question is, shouldn't we be doing that all along?
Yeah, and there it's like, well, it's the same kind of standard, right? Like, and it's one thing if, the legal example is a good one where I might choose to represent myself in something and then use AI, and then I should get that slap on the wrist. The judge, come on, like, you're full of it. You should probably actually get some counsel right now and stop doing whatever ChatGPT tells you. If I'm paying someone to do all this for me, then I really expect better.
Yes.
Right.
You know, like if I can get through 90% of some small claims case using AI, I'm like, okay, well then I probably just saved a few $1,000. Like, you know, I'm glad I didn't use a lawyer for that. Like, okay, so I got yelled at a little bit by the judge. Yeah, it's like if a lawyer, I paid that few $1,000, I'd want my money back. You know?
I would definitely want my money back. Well, and New York State is going a step further too. There's a couple of laws they're passing. One is going to affect in June and one in August, and that's the synthetic performer. You have to label when a performer is AI too, because there's a lot of singers now that are being put out that are actually AI and not real. Some that are really popular.
Yeah, there's that one that's really popular. Like they have music videos and everything, and you're just sort of, but it says on there, I don't know, I never really went back and looked, to be perfectly honest, or whether it actually, when they started, but now it says AI generated on it. But I'm not sure. I think people said, whoever was coming up with the artist, said at the start, this is AI generated, but never labeled it. Yeah. I watched this. It reminded me of K-pop Demon Hunters. And I was like, wow, this is cool. It's K-pop. It's just a movie.
You like K-pop?
Like, I listen to a lot of things because of my kids.
You have kids.
A good example of this might be, I have met Sheryl Crow. Ooh. But for something I think I started looking at who are groups that follow her and stuff. And suddenly I found myself talking to an AI generated version of Sheryl Crow. And it was so accurate that it was answering my questions. You couldn't have programmed it beforehand. It was responding through AI to questions and things that I was saying. It totally AI generated. And then it started asking me, wouldn't I want to do this and that and the other thing that involved money? Yeah.
There you go. Forgery. That's impersonal.
But AI can do that. And, and there isn't a thing like they're going to have in New York on the bottom. This is AI generated. And even if you do have a law, a hacker can take that line out.
Right. What's happened with AI, and again, I'm no coder, but if we know Moore's law, which is processing speed doubles every 10 years or whatever that is, AI has broken that rule, and its ability to process has gone up so much faster. Of course, as Henry said, eating all our natural resources to do so. And it has also crossed what's called the uncanny divide, as Henry experienced, which is being able to no longer discern that the image that they're looking at, the person they're having a conversation with, is human or not. They cannot tell. And that we are there now.
I mean, the reality is AI agents have been on phone calls forever, right? We called it something else.
You could sense it was...
No, until after I started talking, right? Like literally, how many times have you called in, right? Doctor's office or whatever. It's sort of when they plan it, like how they just script it out, right? And you start, hey, this is Josh. How can I help you? And then it pauses for a second. I'm having a conversation with the thing, and then they're like, oh, yeah, you've reached an AI agent. I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. I just realized I'm not talking to anybody. And the first thing I do is besides secretly or quietly cursing at it, I basically turn around and be like, well, I want a manager. We've been doing that for realistically 20 years, 25 years, to be fair, right? And so I guess the bigger question, again, comes to, we've come to terms with these different applications already being there. The difference now is it's just happening in a very condensed fashion. And people don't like change. You become comfortable with what you know. I'm not playing devil's advocate here. I'm just asking the question. Is all of this, a lot of this is about the speed in which it's being replaced? And we're just basically, it's a comfort thing? Or is it an actual problem here?
Oh, it's a problem. Child safety, Canva,
But let's be honest about child safety. Humans made a lot of child safety things, and then it required, in a lot of cases, act of Congress or a lot of lawsuits to change the method.
I think I got to give you an example of something I'm wrestling with now, because I'm trying to raise money from venture capitals for individual Centricity Corporation. Basically, they don't answer. They don't put their phone number on the thing. Info at blah, blah, blah. We don't know if what we're submitting goes into a round file or not. So my question would be, would it be an improvement if venture capital firms installed an AI answering service? And instead of getting no response or no attention, at least AI was screening it. And if you described yourself intelligently, would AI fairly represent you to the VC firm?
You're talking about it would interpret your pitch.
Sure it would, because the danger is the only thing AI could do with it is interpret it in terms of what is previously known. And if you're introducing something revolutionarily new that hasn't been seen before, AI is not going to pick that up.
If it hasn't seen it before.
That's right. In fact, some of the coding we've run into, we've got to double check and double check and double check, because we'll be writing the code and then we test it and we'll find out that AI has gone in and made corrections that are wrong based on what it previously knew.
Well, something that I read about recently, Bed Bath & Beyond is doing a pivot, and they've bought a blockchain business. And they're starting something called LifeChain, and they're acquiring a token company as well. And they want to be a one-stop gateway. So if you're a homeowner, you can use their gateway to access capital through they're making partnerships with lending firms. And this LifeChain is an ecosystem. It's a blockchain ledger, so you can digitally record all your life milestones, births, education records, home purchases, medical records, insurance, even identity documents, and put it all in a single wallet. And it's your lifelong centralized database. That's what they're calling it. Great, fine. And it's blockchain. It's supposedly super secure. But what they're doing is they're using this data to serve you targeted alerts for data. Coming up, you might hear some insurance policies. Oh, you need a contractor. Here's some contractor recommendations. And they take a cut of all this stuff. Yeah. And you signed a waiver when you signed up for LifeChain, and it sidesteps privacy violations. But because it's blockchain and AI is, hyper personalizing and keeping it all secure, it all these workarounds, that you opt in, you're incentivized because they give you discounts for these services. Is that kosher? Is it, is it not?
Is it the expectation of what the new generation?
I find it mildly terrifying, but at the same time, people are using it because it's convenient. And so is this the direction of transparency and privacy in AI? Is this a dangerous direction? Is this getting more prolific? And I don't know, when you start to look at add the transparency or the synthetic identity issue to it, it can be very concerning.
Yeah, and it's also like, who are consumers going to trust? Who are businesses going to trust? Like, who do we want managing for us? Right? So people do, despite some of the issues with big tech. People do share a lot of data with Google and Meta and Apple, Amazon, and so these companies know a lot about my life milestones, my purchase history, my home repair history, things like that. So it's not too hard to take a snapshot of that and then translate this into, okay, what should I be thinking about now? I ideally want some kind of control and agency as to when those companies are doing that with all this information. This is where there are just so many of folks trying to solve things that I don't think real people are really like staying up at night worrying about. And so when someone does have a home repair need, like they have some well water issue, that
I think we're back to caveat emptor.
Yes.
What the present state of the world is this. We're all going to use these tools, and we have to keep in the back of my mind, we do not have 99+% certainty that what we're hearing is accurate. We don't. And the architecture that we're bringing to the table here isn't really AI. It's active inference, also AI. That's something that is conceptually new. I think we are 5% technology and 95% mindset in order to really understand what we're doing. And it takes even expert people, 2 or 3 of our webinars, to understand what the heck we're doing. And then they finally talk to us individually and suddenly, aha.
Yeah. And it's not asking the consumer to change their behavior or the user to change their behavior at all. It's just understanding how the process is working to provide that that privacy and security.
If I tried to fool somebody to say, I'm really me, I'm not really me, our system would say, I'm sorry, you are really you. There's nobody like you.
Yeah, though my father was a stand-in for Robert Duvall in a movie, but that's another story.
Wow.
David, is there something that you think, one thing that you think would help or that should be changed? One thing that you'd like to see happen going forward?
Well, I mean, there are plenty of things on the infrastructure side, like Henry's talked about on the identity front, and there've been a lot of fits and starts with that on the way, and it's like that old proverb that I think was just made up as a Chinese proverb, but the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and second best time is now, and so we're kind of there with that. But so it doesn't mean we can't get it right, but ultimately, so much of what we're talking about is also choices humans make, and that's, are you trying to make a quick buck? Are you trying to just go and do whatever it takes to go and pull one over, like morals, ethics be damned? Or are you trying to build something sustainable and build trust? Do you care about trust? And that's going to separate a lot of folks from a lot of the rest. And then it's a question that we have in politics right now, we have in society on many levels. It's that over the long term, clearly in the short term, plenty of people and entities and businesses that don't care about trust get rewarded, sometimes in fantastically astounding ways, and it can be very frustrating. Like, will that fail, and will the high trust folks win?
I would like to end with a quick comment. We take caveat emptor out of the equation. If you use one true you on our architecture, you don't have to be beware. You have 100% certainty that you are you, and the person or organization you think you're dealing with really is that organization.
I'm looking forward.
No more caveat emptor.
Looking forward to try that out because I'm paranoid.
Yeah, well, that's a good place to end. Well, this has been great. Yeah.
Thank you
you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Discussion.
Yeah, this is great. Really appreciate it.